Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating piece of creative writing. It's a fictional thought experiment that imagines a super high-stakes peace negotiation to end the war in Ukraine.
And right from the very beginning, the source material is crystal clear about what it is. As it says right here, this is a thought experiment. So this isn't a report on a real event. Nope. It's a creative deep dive, designed to test out a pretty provocative idea.
Okay, so let's get into the setup here, because the whole premise is pretty compelling, and it's definitely not your typical diplomatic scene.
So picture this. It's August 2025. In this imagined future, you've got Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin meeting one-on-one in this remote lodge up in Alaska. The whole idea is to basically strip away all the usual layers of diplomacy, all the aids and the posturing, and see if these two leaders, through just a series of blunt, straight-up conversations, can figure out a way to end the conflict themselves. Now, the very first thing this imagined summit does is get right to the heart of the matter. It tackles the history of the conflict, and boom, it immediately throws two completely different narratives on the table. So in this fictional exchange, the Trump character kicks things off by challenging that mainstream Western narrative head-on. He's basically arguing that this idea of a simple, unprovoked attack, well, that's just not how things really work in the real world. And then the character of Putin immediately fires back. But here's the thing, he doesn't focus on 2022. Instead, he argues that the real starting point of this whole thing was way back in 2014, with the overthrow of Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. So right there, you see the two clashing interpretations of history laid out plain and simple. Is it an unprovoked black and white act of aggression that just started in 2022? Or, as this thought experiment suggests, is it actually the final link in a long chain of cause and effect that started years and years before? The fictional dialogue then actually lays out a very specific timeline to support this alternative view. It presents what it sees as a direct cause and effect path leading right up to the 2022 invasion. And what's really interesting here is how this fictional timeline reframes the whole narrative. By starting the clock in 2014 with Yanukovych's overthrow, it paints the 2022 invasion not as the starting point, but as the final domino to fall in a sequence of events, a sequence that includes failed peace deals and escalating military buildups. This imagined line really hammers that point home. The argument being made here is that there was a clear off-ramp, a chance for peace with the Minsk Accords. But it was missed because, in this fictional view, Western allies didn't push hard enough to make the deal happen. And that right there, that brings us to the absolute core argument of this entire thought experiment. It's why, in this fictional scenario, going through all this history is presented as the essential, non-negotiable first step you have to take to even get to peace. This line, this is the key line from the whole dialogue. It just encapsulates the entire premise of the source material, doesn't it? The idea is that to move forward, both sides have to first agree to tear down their existing stories, their fairy tales, and build a new, shared, and probably pretty uncomfortable version of the past together. And let's be super clear here. In this thought experiment, agreeing on the past, that's just step one. That's just the foundation. It's the ticket to get into the real negotiation, which is this huge 5-part deal. The source imagines that after you settle the history, you'd then have to tackle security guarantees and NATO's role, then the incredibly tough job of settling borders, then a plan for economic rebuilding and sanctions, and then finally, figuring out the political spin and the legacy for everybody involved.
This line from the fictional Putin, it's just such a powerful metaphor for the story's main theme. It perfectly captures the whole idea. You can't construct a stable future if it's built on a shaky foundation of two completely different pasts. You have to agree on the foundation first. So, in the end, this thought experiment doesn't really hand us any easy answers. Instead, it just leaves us with this really provocative question. It challenges us to think, what if the real path to solving these huge conflicts isn't just about negotiating what comes next? What if it's about the difficult, really controversial work of going back and rewriting the story of how it all began?